Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Coach Franco Breakdowns. And for today, we are going to discuss Joe Rogan's transfer to Spotify. So, if you don't know Joe Rogan, he is this multifaceted, multi-dimensional icon, okay, so to speak. In terms of podcasting, he is the podcaster in America, right? So, let's. I'm gonna give you a little bit of introduction to who Joe Rogan is. Joe Rogan started his career as the Fear Factor guy. So he hosted Fear Factor. And then from there, he dabbled into a little bit of TV. I'm not sure if he got into film, pero uh, his showbiz career was cut short, but he continued being a stand-up comic and he got better at it. And then now he's selling out theaters and so many shows. And then from there, he continued his journey in fitness. He's a martial artist, so he is a taekwondo champion. He is a he fought in kickboxing, and then he's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt. So that path led him to being a UFC commentator. Now, working with the UFC through the years increased his popularity, and at the same time, it helped grow the sport as well. So, like everything progressed at the right time for him. And then while he was doing that, he was diving into these other projects. He was hunting. He was experimenting with things that would stretch human imagination and stretch out the brain's capabilities and how the body works. Kumbaga, he was an advocate of that. So there were so many things that he was doing, and then he created the Joe Rogan Experience. So it was a podcast. It started out as a project that he was doing wherein he would invite his friends, they would talk, they would smoke weed, and then enjoy it. Then eventually the show progressed. Um, the guests got better, the quality of the show, the production got better, and it became so popular that so many people want to be in that show. I mean, the reach of that show is so big that even him in one of his episodes he has to have an agent or a manager like talk to people who want to be in the show. So syempre it's his show, it's his rules, so he decides whether who goes there or who doesn't. So to give a list, who's been there? So many people. Hicks and Gracie's been there, the Machados have been there, Ben Shapiro's there, Jeffrey Epstein, no, not Jeffrey Epstein, sorry, Eric Weinstein. Sorry, Eric Weinstein, Bernie Sanders, who else? Robert Downey Jr. I mean, there's so many episodes to choose from. Yeah, guy, from your industry experts to your thought leaders to your doctors, anthropologists, Egyptologists, archaeologists. He has so many guests that tap into his interest. And what the show allowed him or benefited from was, or what the show gave him was access to these people. And for those people who guested on his podcast, they were able to share their point of views. They were given a voice, kumbaga. They were given a voice to a very wide audience. And that grew the show's popularity. And it was, ang alam ko, distribution niya is, yan, iTunes, and then YouTube, and I don't know where else. Pero kasi ako, I always watch his podcast on YouTube. Now, this is very recent development. He just announced it. He created an episode and announced it that the entire Joe Rogan Experience will be exclusive to Spotify. So then all the news articles came out. It was initially $100+ million, and then came another article na it was like 156, $154+ million. And for me, I mean, Joe Rogan could probably gotten more. Dahil, I mean, he's definitely worth, even if Spotify paid Joe Rogan 250 to $300 million, it would probably be, worth their money. Because I think these are, the way I see it, this move clearly shows the leverage that Joe Rogan has in terms of the market. So he's a UFC commentator, so you have your martial arts community, you have your MMA and jiu-jitsu community right off the bat, instant listeners. You have he's a stand-up comedian, so all the comics, all their fan base, and your fan base goes to Spotify. He's a fitness guy, so he's part owner of On It, and he supports and advocates a lot of other fitness brands. Their audience, Spotify. He's a cannabis advocate. Okay, the guy smokes weed. He encourages people to smoke weed to a certain degree. Okay, everything in moderation. So, weed people, Spotify. Psychedelics. Okay, LSD, ayahuascas, um, fans of sensory deprivations, Spotify. Okay, members. Joe Rogan is. This happened like last year or last year. Um, the intellectual community coined up this term. There's a group of people. Okay, I'm not so sure about the list anymore, pero they're considered the intellectual dark web. Okay, so Joe Rogan's part of that. It includes Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro. Ah man, who are the other people? Eric Weinstein. Sino pa ba? Sam Harris. I'm not sure. So these are intellectual people who will always push the envelope, and they just speak their truth. That fan base, Spotify. And then he's also a hunter, so everything that is hunting related. Okay, so he's friends with Cam Haines. He hunts elk. He will post a lot of it on his social media. Hunting community, Spotify. So the market repercussions of his move to Spotify benefits Spotify in so many ways. Now, Spotify is, the way I see things is Spotify wants to strengthen its hold on the audio industry. And at the same time, they also recognize that podcasting is a growing industry. So there are a lot of podcasts that are springing left to right, and they want to take advantage of that. Not only that, they want to make sure that, whoever becomes the next big thing can be brought in, or uses Spotify as their platform. So what does this, what do you call this? So how does this affect us? So, in my opinion, this is good for podcasters because it simply means that there is a viable market for podcasting. Next, as long as you make great content, as long as you have good podcast episodes, you know that people will listen to it. Number 3, the Joe Rogan dream. You know what I'm saying? It's not Joe Rogan Experience is not an overnight sensation. It took years before it reached the level that it is today, but it's a good beacon to reach, knowing that, again, as long as you work hard and you keep at it and you stay true to yourself and you remain true to your craft, you can reach that level. His move to Spotify also signifies the changes and the improvements that Spotify is going to do. Since the Joe Rogan Experience has audio and video components, Spotify now, as of this recording, they're slowly integrating video podcasts into their platform. And that is good for podcasters who are also venturing into video. Now, of course, you also have to consider why Joe Rogan, did the move. Several controversies, several angles were also looked into. Syempre, Joe Rogan is a very, very strong proponent of free speech. He doesn't take censorship very lightly. And he's had these problems with YouTube, like early on pa, na he would say certain things that are deemed controversial or politically incorrect, and YouTube will take it down or they will shadow ban that episode. And he's not really good with that because he is all about spreading information. He is all about having the rightful discourse and having the conversation to shed light on so many things. Now, when you censor that material, you are censoring the passage of information. And he is very, very much against that. Pero syempre, being the diplomatic guy that he is, he said that, Spotify just gave me a really good deal. I didn't pass on it. And I'm working with them right now. Like, everything's exclusive to Spotify. But, come on. You can't really take out that angle. Diba? Syempre, with Spotify comes less censorship, and I really think that he's earned that leverage because he's done so much through the years. I mean, me, I started my podcast because of Joe Rogan. I really really enjoyed listening to the conversations that he has with other people, and they're very interesting, they're very innovative, they're very educational, and it gives you a very good sense of how the world works, how people's mindsets are molded, and the opinions that you can formulate based on the knowledge that you acquire from his guests. So now, what are the opportunities from this move? Of course, if Joe Rogan's not on YouTube and on iTunes or whichever platform siya nagdi-distribute before, it's it's a good opportunity for new podcasts to step up. You know, it's a good opportunity for new podcasters to reach an audience that's already there, 'di ba? So Joe Rogan's not Joe Rogan's out of YouTube. There are other podcasts that are on YouTube that you can watch. And if you're used to having Joe Rogan and he's not there, then it's going to make you discover other podcasts that you could listen to since you're so used to YouTube. Now, um, another thing is it encourages new podcasters to create their own podcasts and for existing podcasts to step up their game. Kasi now we know that it's a very viable thing. It's a very marketable thing, and if you can be ahead or you can do things better, people will gravitate towards you. So, uh, especially during quarantine, I started podcasting pre-COVID, and then all of a sudden, ngayon, like so many podcasts have sprung up. Probably out of boredom, or it's their way of dealing with quarantine life. But you will see the diversity in each podcast. You will see how creative people are. And I'm from the Philippines. There are so many podcasts here that are distributed and narrated by different people. So you hear and you get to experience other people's stories through their mouths, through their insights, and it's very interesting. It's very enriching. So very excited. Good times ahead. And before I end this episode, shout out to the Podcast PH, the Philippine Podcast Directory. Okay, so give them. You can follow the page, or you can join the page. You can join the community on Facebook. Just look for Podcast PH. Okay, so you can discover so many podcasts. Dito lang sa Pilipinas, sobrang daming magagandang podcast. The directory alone, I'm like, wow. When I joined, there were like only 200, 300. Now, the last time I checked, there are like more than 1,000 people in that community. So it makes me happy to see that. It motivates me to create more content and provide value to my community. So that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you on the next video. Bye bye.